The massive oak doors of the Blackwood mansion creaked open with a sound that echoed through the empty, marble-floored hall. Lila Hart took a deep breath, her medical bag clutched tightly against her side, and stepped inside. The hall was enormous, the walls lined with stern portraits of generations past. The scent of polished wood and wax lingered heavily in the air. Lila immediately felt the weight of the place, cold, imposing, almost suffocating in its grandeur. A tall, severe-looking woman appeared from the shadows. Her hair was pulled tightly into a bun, her sharp eyes assessing every inch of Lila as if measuring her worth. "You must be Lila Hart, the nurse," she said in a tone that was formal, almost icy. "Follow me." Each step Lila took resonated sharply on the marble floors, magnifying the mansion's eerie emptiness. She followed the woman through a long corridor lined with suits of armor and glass cases filled with antique artifacts, until they stopped before a grand set of double doors. Pushing them open, the woman revealed a room bathed in soft, clinical light. Inside lay a man on a hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and 4 drips. Every breath, every beat of his heart was tracked with a precision that made the room feel like a cross between a luxury suite and an intensive care unit. He was tall, his features sharp and aristocratic, but his eyes, they were empty, staring into nothing. "This is Ethan Blackwood," the woman said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He fell 3 months ago, an accident. No one really knows how it happened." Lila's heart skipped a beat. She had cared for patients in critical condition before, but never someone from a family as powerful and wealthy as the Blackwoods. "Hello, Ethan," she whispered, approaching his side with care. "I'm Lila. I'll be taking care of you from now on." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, faintly, a twitch of his finger. Almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make Lila's chest tighten. It was as if, even paralyzed, he was aware. A shiver ran down her spine, an unexplainable sense of connection that sent warmth through her veins. The following days settled into a routine, strange yet intimate. Lila bathed him, adjusted his pillows, monitored his medication. Every gentle movement, every whispered word, every fleeting glance seemed to build a bridge between them. She found herself talking to him, telling him stories about her day, about the world beyond the mansion walls, and about the little joys she often overlooked. Yet something didn't sit right. She noticed anomalies. Certain medications had been administered without any trace in his records, a faint yellowish residue on his skin that didn't match any prescribed treatment. Lila's stomach churned. Someone is poisoning him, slowly. The thought made her chest tighten with fear and determination. Ethan, lying there, seemed almost to understand. Even in his paralyzed state, his eyes flickered with awareness and intelligence, tracking her movements, gauging her reactions. She realized that her role had transformed from mere caregiver to something far more urgent, protector. One evening, while she was organizing his medical files, she stumbled upon a partially erased report. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic in places, and the numbers didn't add up. Small discrepancies in medication dosage, subtle changes in force schedules, these weren't accidents. Her hands trembled as she read line after line. Each entry painted a grim picture. Someone wanted Ethan to remain incapacitated. Someone wanted him gone. As she sat back in shock, Ethan's eyes, blue and sharp despite the paralysis, seemed to focus on her. A faint movement, a subtle recognition. Lila felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with a strange calm. He knew. Somehow, he understood that she had discovered something important. And then, for the first time, Ethan's hand moved. Just a fraction, just enough to press lightly against hers. Lila froze, her breath catching in her throat. "Ethan?" she whispered, barely daring to speak. The mansion seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the wind rustled through the ancient trees, a faint echo of the tension inside. Lila felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was the first real sign that he was fighting back, that he was aware, that the miracle she had hoped for might actually be unfolding before her eyes. Every morning, Lila arrived at the mansion before the sun had fully risen. The house felt eerily silent at that hour, the only sound the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway or the distant hum of the heating system. She would push open the heavy door to Ethan's room and pause for a moment, taking in his figure lying so still beneath the pristine white sheets. It was hard to believe that such a strong, confident man had been reduced to this, trapped inside his own body. Yet each day, she noticed something, a twitch of a finger, a slight shift in his gaze, a minute movement of his lips that almost hinted at words unsaid. It was enough to keep her hope alive, and she clung to it like a lifeline. "Morning, Ethan," she whispered as she rolled up the sleeves of his hospital gown. "We have a big day today. Let's see if we can get a little stronger, huh?" A faint flicker of his eyelids met hers. It was subtle, but to Lila, it was an entire conversation. "I'm here. I see you. I trust you. As she bathed him, adjusting the warm cloth over his skin with gentle precision, Lila kept talking, filling the quiet room with her voice. She told him about the small things she usually overlooked. The old oak tree in the garden that was leaning dangerously, the way the kitchen staff kept burning the morning toast, and the little stray cat that had been hiding near the servants' quarters. "You'd love that cat, Ethan," she said with a small smile. "It's brave and scrappy, just like someone else I know." Her fingers brushed his wrist as she checked the 4-line, and for a fleeting second, she felt a warmth that went beyond the physical, a connection, fragile yet undeniable. But Lila's growing hope was shadowed by unease. Some of the things she discovered in his files did not make sense. There were gaps in the medication logs, doses that didn't match prescriptions, and cryptic annotations in handwriting that didn't belong to the attending doctors. One night, while cross-referencing charts, she noticed subtle inconsistencies in the reports. Who would do this, she wondered. And why? Her investigation led her to review previous lab results. One blood test stood out, traces of a chemical compound that shouldn't have been there, a toxin slowly affecting Ethan's nervous system. Her stomach churned. The accident that had left him paralyzed might not have been entirely accidental. As she leaned back from the desk, her hand resting over his, Ethan's fingers twitched ever so slightly. Her pulse quickened. She leaned closer, whispering, "It's okay, Ethan. Over the next week, I've got you." Their routine solidified. "We're going to figure this out together." Felt strangely comforting. Lila would bathe him, adjust his pillows, check vitals, and then sit beside him for hours, telling him stories as she worked. She described the little things, the city beyond the mansion, the scent of fresh rain, the laughter of children in the park. "You know," she said one afternoon, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead, "people think I talk to myself. But really, I'm talking to you. You hear me, don't you?" The soft flicker of his eyes suggested that he did. Lila felt a shiver of triumph and relief. Slowly, day by day, he responded in the smallest ways, a blink, a subtle nod, a squeeze of her hand. Each reaction reinforced her belief that he was more aware than anyone suspected. One evening, Lila found a small notebook tucked under his pillow. The pages were blank, but the pencil beside it suggested he was trying to communicate, in some way, despite his limitations. She picked it up, holding it carefully in her hands, and whispered, "We'll figure out how to speak together, somehow." Her investigation soon extended beyond Ethan's medical records. Late one night, after everyone else in the mansion had gone to bed, she sneaked quietly into the study. Dust coated the leather-bound books, and the room smelled faintly of old paper and whiskey. Hidden among ledgers and envelopes, she found a series of financial transactions, large sums of money moving to unfamiliar accounts just days before Ethan's accident. The recipient was connected to shady operations and known for orchestrating accidents that looked natural. Her hands trembled as she realized the implications. It wasn't just a family feud. Someone had intentionally tried to harm him. And the deeper she looked, the more the evidence pointed toward one name, Julian Blackwood, a distant cousin who had always been envious of Ethan's inheritance and influence. The realization sent chills down her spine. She hurried back to Ethan's room, clutching the documents. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Ethan, someone tried to hurt you. I found proof. I think it was Julian." For the first time, his eyes widened with recognition and anger, despite his physical limitations. A spark of determination ignited in the depths of his gaze, a silent acknowledgement. They would face this threat together. Over the following days, small miracles began to occur. His fingers, once stiff and unresponsive, began moving deliberately. A twitch became a gesture, gestures became signals. Lila developed a system of communication. 1 blink meant yes. 2 blinks meant no. A squeeze of the hand indicated understanding. One afternoon, as she wiped his face gently, his hand moved, almost of its own volition, pressing lightly against hers. Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. He's reaching out. He's aware. He's fighting back. Lila's voice was soft, trembling with emotion. I see you, Ethan. I see you, and I won't let them take this from you. Not while I'm here. The mansion felt different that evening. No longer just a place of shadows and secrets, it seemed to hum with possibility. For the first time, Lila sensed that they could win, not just for justice, but for Ethan's recovery, for their growing bond, for hope itself. By the end of these first 2 sections, Lila and Ethan had formed a silent, unbreakable partnership, full of small victories and subtle, miraculous signs of recovery. Suspense builds with the discovery of Julian's involvement, and their emotional connection deepens, laying the groundwork for both the recovery miracle and the romantic development that will follow. The days stretched into weeks, each one a careful blend of routine and quiet observation. Lila moved with precision, checking Ethan's vitals, adjusting his pillows, and cleaning the sterile lines of his IVs. Yet, amid the clinical efficiency, a new rhythm had emerged, a rhythm of understanding, almost a conversation without words. Ethan began responding more consistently. A slight lift of his eyebrow, the narrowing of his blue eyes, a subtle squeeze of Lila's hand, all gestures she learned to interpret. She created small tests, gentle exercises to gauge his awareness. Try to squeeze my hand if you understand what I'm about to say, she instructed one morning. Her fingers hovered over his, eyes searching his. A hesitant squeeze followed, weak but deliberate. Lila smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. Asterisk, he's here. He's really here. Asterisk. But their bond was not only built on recovery. Lila began telling him stories, little details of her life, growing up in a small town, her dreams of being a nurse, her favorite songs, even her guilty pleasures. I know you can hear me, Ethan. Maybe not fully, but somewhere. I know you're listening, she whispered one evening as she adjusted the blanket over his chest. A faint movement of his fingers brushed hers. Her breath caught. This was no reflex. This was connection, recognition. And in that instant, the isolation of the mansion, the shadow of the accident, seemed to melt away. One particularly quiet afternoon, Lila noticed something unusual. Ethan's eyes followed her every movement with intensity. And when she spoke, his lips moved slightly, as if trying to form words. The tiniest quiver of his jaw, the softest shift of his hand. These moments, though fleeting, carried the weight of a miracle. I'm here, she said softly, placing her hand over his. You're not alone, Ethan. I won't let you be. He blinked deliberately, twice, signaling yes. A tremor of emotion ran through her. For months she had spoken to someone who seemed unreachable. And now she knew he heard her. The mansion, once oppressive, now felt different. Shadows lingered in corners, but warmth seemed to seep through the old walls. Hope had found a way into this place, fragile yet undeniable. The unease, however, never fully dissipated. Lila remained vigilant, carefully noting irregularities in the mansion's routine. One evening, as she reviewed Ethan's medications yet again, she noticed a discrepancy, a vial that wasn't listed on his chart. Her pulse quickened. She cross-referenced the chemical formula. It's a toxin, she realized, cold dread settling in her stomach. Whoever was responsible had planned this meticulously. Determined to uncover the truth, Lila ventured into the study late that night. Dust particles floated in the lamplight as she rifled through drawers and cabinets. Hidden beneath a pile of papers, she found a series of bank statements, transaction records, and notes. The pattern was unmistakable. Large sums of money sent to intermediaries connected to accidents and cover-ups. And then she saw the name, Julian Blackwood. Her stomach dropped. Julian, a distant cousin, had always been envious of Ethan, the inheritance, the influence, the favor of the family patriarch. And now, it was clear he had acted on that envy. Clutching the documents to her chest, she rushed to Ethan's side. "Ethan! I found it! Someone tried to hurt you! Julian!" Her voice broke under the weight of the revelation. Ethan's eyes flared with a spark of awareness, a silent roar of anger. Though he could barely move, the intensity of his gaze was enough to convey understanding. He knew. And together, without a word, they shared a silent promise. They would confront this threat. The next hours were a whirlwind. Officers arrived, summoned discreetly by Lila prior to the confrontation. Julian was arrested, the evidence meticulously presented by Ethan and Lila. The mansion, once filled with tension and fear, now exhaled in relief. Ethan's body had fully recovered from the accident. Physical therapy, Lila's care, and sheer determination had rebuilt him from the inside out. For the first time in months, he stood on his own 2 feet in the grand hall of the Blackwood mansion. Lila approached, a mixture of pride and emotion in her eyes. "You did it, Ethan," she whispered. "You're free." Ethan's gaze softened, and for the first time, he reached out, not just physically but emotionally. He took her hand, holding it gently but firmly. "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. "Not just the recovery, everything. You saved me." Lila's heart swelled, tears pricking her eyes. "No, Ethan, you saved yourself. I just helped you along the way." And in that quiet, golden-lit hall, amidst the relief of justice and the triumph of resilience, something else shifted, something deeper, more intimate. The bond forged through trials, silent understanding, and shared determination had blossomed into love. Ethan leaned closer, his forehead brushing hers. "Lila, I don't know how it happened, but I do know one thing. I don't want to spend another day without you." Her tears fell freely as she whispered, "Neither do I." The mansion, once a place of shadowed halls and whispered threats, now resonated with something warm and unbreakable. Hope, love, and victory intertwined, forming the beginning of a new chapter, one where both Ethan and Lila could finally breathe freely, together. The mansion was quiet, but the air felt electric, charged with the calm after a storm. Julian was gone, justice had been served, and for the first time in months, Ethan could breathe without fear. But the weight of what they had endured lingered, a reminder of how fragile life could be, and how precious moments truly were. Lila stood beside him in the grand hall, her hand lightly brushing his as he adjusted the cuff of his shirt. He looked at her, blue eyes full of gratitude, warmth, and something deeper, something that had been growing quietly since the first day he had awakened. "You know," he said softly, "I thought I had everything before this, money, power, influence, but none of it matters without you." Lila's heart skipped. She had imagined this moment countless times, but now it was real. "Ethan, He leaned closer, fingers brushing hers gently. "I don't know how it happened, but I know one thing. I don't want to spend another day without you by my side. You were my anchor, my light in the darkness, the reason I fought to live." Her eyes brimmed with tears as she whispered, "You've no idea how much that means to me." The mansion, once a place of fear and secrets, now seemed to glow. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting golden beams across the polished floors, illuminating every corner, every shadow, as if confirming that the darkness had passed. That evening, Ethan suggested a walk in the mansion's private garden. The night air was cool, the scent of blooming roses drifting through the open windows. Lila helped him steady his steps as they moved along the winding stone path, and for the first time, the world felt normal again, quiet, safe, and intimate. They paused near a small fountain. Moonlight reflected off the water, creating 1,000 sparkling lights across the garden. Ethan stopped and turned to face her, eyes searching, hands trembling slightly as they brushed against hers. "Lila," he whispered, voice low and earnest. "These months, everything we've been through. I've realized something. I don't want to live a single day without you." Her chest tightened. Her fingers intertwined with his. "Ethan. I feel the same. I've always felt it. I just never knew if you could." He smiled, a mixture of relief and awe. "I can. I do. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." The following week, Ethan led her to the rooftop of the mansion as the sun began to set. The city's skyline glowed in golden hues, the perfect backdrop for a moment neither would forget. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Lila's breath caught. Her hands flew to her mouth as he opened it, revealing an exquisite diamond ring set in platinum. "Lila," he said, voice trembling slightly, "you didn't just save my life, you became my life. I want to spend every day showing you how much you mean to me. Will you marry me?" Tears ran down her cheeks. "Yes. 1,000 times yes," she managed to gasp. He slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a long, tender embrace. Their lips met under the fading sunlight, sealing the promise of a future together.